All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this. I guess it's really around how do you hire and find a virtual assistant to help you in your business. And it's a topic that I think people are particularly interested in. I get probably more inquiries about this sort of topic than lots of other things. I've done some blog articles and some other things on there. Some of the highest hits on blog articles. So I guess the changing environment has meant that virtual assistants are becoming more and more prevalent for us, and much easier to get access to, and so people are really interested in it. Also books like, the 4-Hour Work Week and all that sort of stuff by Tim Ferriss, where he talked about even if you're in a job, you may actually be able to leverage your time by employing a virtual assistant to help you out, as long as that frees you up to do other things. I'm sure in some jobs that works out really well. So I'll take you through the process of today of, I guess, a couple of things. I want to talk about virtual assistants, how you can work with them, what they are, and then I'll take you through step by step through the recruiting process that I've used quite successfully to recruit virtual assistants, and you can then work out how you're going to apply that for you and your business. Anytime you've got any questions, please just type them into the question area and I'll try and stop and address them. And every now and then I'm going to stop and ask you a question. So my first question today is really, how many of you have already, I guess two things. If you've already engaged a virtual assistant, you're probably just here for interest, but if you haven't already got a virtual assistant on board, how many of you are thinking seriously about engaging somebody to help you in your business? Just type in a yeah, no, not sure. Yep. Yeah, we've got several. Yeah, so people have got virtual assistants. That's good. Yeah, people are looking at it. That's good. Yeah. Some people have done some inquiries and everything else, and some people have got one already but are looking for more, contemplating it. Yeah, have one looking for more. Yeah, it's great. Just recruited one. Yeah, yeah, it's great. So I've done it for clients. Yeah, cool. So some people use them in different ways, and so we'll talk about that. So all right, so that's pretty good. So a good cross section there of people who are currently using them and other people who may not, who may want to use them. So that's all good. I guess I'll take you through my experience and my processes. So just bear with me while we get started on that. So for me, my experience with virtual assistants. So I've got to say, overall, my experience has been excellent. And it's been a very positive experience, and I've used virtual assistants in a variety of situations. So I started off using virtual assistants as contractors through, Elance and Freelancer and those sorts of sites to help me with things like graphic design and iPhone development. So I've developed 3 iPhone apps. I did translation services for those apps. One of those apps I translated into 5 different languages. I used, contractors to help me with that, and then I've used them for web development, and then finally I made the jump and put on wonderful Ray as a personal assistant. So Ray now works with me full-time, and then a few years ago I put on Chris as well as a full-time web developer, and I still use occasionally other people for specific technical skills, but in general my experience has been really good. With some of the stuff on, Freelancer and those sorts of areas, sometimes I was I didn't have great experiences in that people failed to deliver or didn't do things, but I found the process really good, and like everything in life, once I lucked into some people who were really, really good and really reliable, and it all became so much easier. So in general, overall, my experience has been really, really good. So the next question is, what is a virtual assistant? Are they right for you? And, just how can we use them and how can we engage with them? So what's a virtual assistant? So a virtual assistant provides a range of, I guess, online support services, and they can be administrative, secretarial, clerical, creative, technical services in a whole range of different areas. In my experience, they're often home-based, and they can be located anywhere in the world with an internet connection. and often the client, me, doesn't have any physical contact with their virtual assistant. So I've never met Chris and Ray. I would like to go to the Philippines and meet them one day, and I'm looking forward to that day. But at the moment, we just had completely virtual contact. Now, not all virtual assistants work from home. Some actually are employed in, if you like a call center type environment where they go in and they work for either individual clients or specific clients, but they go to a service which provides them with internet access and service and everything else, and that's different ways of engaging with them. You can employ your virtual assistants on either a project basis, which I've done a number of times, do this, develop this website for me, create this logo for me, that sort of stuff, on a casual basis, or I employ you on an hourly rate basis to do some work for me, on a part-time basis. So I started with my VA Ray on a part-time basis, and very quickly I found out she was just what I was looking for, and so we moved that relationship to a full-time basis. There's a range of different ways. So I guess the opportunity is yours to go, okay, there are a number of different ways that I can employ these people and work with these people, and what's the best way that suits you. So what can they do? This is a short list. Pretty much they can do anything you want, but general business support, typing, email, they can make travel arrangements, do all sorts of stuff. I originally engaged Ray because I wanted to do primarily a lot of blog and article writing for me, but they can do data entry and bookkeeping if you like, webmaster role and SEO, search engine optimization, graphic design, video design and editing, social media posting, or a whole range of different things. And it's amazing when you go onto some of these sites and start to do some research and start to have a look at the range of options that you can have for people to assist you in your business. So there's a whole range of tasks, a whole different range of ways of engaging with those people. All right, so how do we engage with a virtual assistant? As I mentioned, you can hire them on a full-time, part-time, an hourly or salaried basis. People always ask me, what does it cost? And so my virtual assistant Ray went off and did some research for me. And this is a guide to sort of virtual assistant salaries in the Philippines. And both my virtual assistants are employed in the Philippines. Happy to talk a little bit why that's a good thing. But basically they're all US dollar exchange rates, but at the current exchange rate of 75%, a virtual assistant will cost you somewhere between $400 and $1,000 a month Australian. Okay, so in part-time rates are obviously a proportion of that, so 50% of that. Okay, so and that's a monthly fee. All right, so when you look at the range there of skills, and obviously the more skilled and the more in demand people are, then just like here, the more you can expect to pay. All right, so what are the benefits of it? I think some of the big ones for people are there's no additional cost for infrastructure and employment, so you don't have to provide computers and desks and a whole range of different things. That's all provided as part of the fee. There is flexibility in employment arrangements, so you can be quite flexible in how you arrange with them and work with them. You can get access to specific skill sets, and if you go searching, you'll realize that a number of those skill sets are very specific. Different time zones, so the offset in time zones can be very helpful. So my virtual assistants are both in the Philippines, so they're 2 hours behind. So Ray and Chris, it's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon over there, and it's actually, I find it really good. So at the end of the day, I can finish up my day, give them a heap of tasks, and they've still got an hour or two to work on some stuff for me and finish off some things for me, so it's sitting there ready for me when I log back in the morning. So really quite good. The other thing to think of is, particularly if you engage somebody in another country, a third world country, that for some employees, often you're giving them access to employment at wage rates and locations and times that really improve their quality of work. So if, an Australian wage costs situations, $400 a month may not seem like very much, but for some people in other countries, that's a very good salary. Okay. For them, VA work is often highly paid when compared to the local options. Okay, and it means often they don't have to travel and through congested cities and all that sort of stuff to travel to their work and do things, and it can just generally improve their quality of life. Often you'll find also in other countries that, not all members of the family work. So sometimes you'll find the virtual assistant that you engage will be supporting their whole family or contributing significantly to the whole family, and it's not uncommon for those for your virtual assistant to send 60, 70, 80% of their wages home to support the family. So there's a bit of good there, and that's not to be underestimated. So what are the disadvantages of hiring a virtual assistant? First one is they can't do any physical tasks for you. So they can't just whip down to the post office and pick up the mail, get your coffee, grab your dry cleaning. They can't do anything physical. They can't lift things, do things. So that's the first thing. Second disadvantage is they've got different sets of holidays, different climate, and different events. So, and by events, you'll often find that I'm talking about political events and all those sorts of things. So, and the next point's about internet access dependent. So they're highly dependent on their access to the internet. And for some other reason, if the power goes out or there's a cyclone or a storm or whatever, they're offline and they just can't physically get back online. And then often third world countries, it can take a little while to get back online. So that can be a challenge. I know with the guys in the Philippines, particularly Chris in Manila, we've had real trouble with rolling brownouts and those sorts of things as they've brought on, new power stations and done other things. So some real challenges there in terms of access, and you just have to be a bit flexible around that. Different language, often English is not their first language. It depends on who you deal with, but different language, customs, and understanding. So one of the things is, you can't use slang because they often just don't get slang. So you need to speak clearly and concisely with them. The time difference can be a disadvantage. It depends where it is. If you've got a time difference that means that they're 9 hours ahead of you or something, that means they're doing stuff overnight for you, but it also means they can't do stuff during the day when you want them for. So the time difference to some countries can be a real problem. And then the problem of forex rates, so foreign exchange rates. So as the cost can go up quite significantly and change differently depending on where the exchange rate is. So, if you started employing somebody when the Australian dollar was, $1.10, and now it's back to 75 cents, then there's been a 30% difference in the cost of your virtual assistant for you. So worth thinking about those sorts of things. It's not necessarily a fixed cost. Just a couple of tips and tricks for getting the most out of them. Out of your relationship with them, I think you've got to make sure they've got the right tools, and that's collaboration tools. So how we're going to communicate and talk and collaborate on different aspects of stuff. My guys, we use email, we use Skype, but particularly we use Trello as both a collaboration tool and a task management tool. So that's TRELLO. We use Trello to communicate really well, but you've also got to make sure they've got the right business tools and software and stuff. So in that respect, I found things like Office 365, just quite brilliant because I can pay for the subscription, and that way Ray and Chris then both have access to the latest versions of the Microsoft software. Okay, and you may need to buy other software for them and do other things, just like you would if you want them to have specialist software. So initially the guys looked after their own Microsoft Office stuff, but if anything specific they needed, I would get it for them. Now it's just easier for me to subscribe to the lot. Need to communicate with them regularly, so probably more than you think. So touch base with them. My guys, we don't talk a lot on the phone. We often might have a Skype hookup or something, but most of the time we talk via Trello or email. Really important that you give really detailed instructions, and as I mentioned before, no slang. I use video as a way of giving instructions, so I'll often give a short video with a screen capture indicating clearly what I want, or audio messages as well, so they can replay those and look at those. So make sure you give really quite detailed instructions, remembering of course that in Australia we speak English, but sometimes it's not exactly proper English, so just be careful about that. Other really important tip and trick is I think you need to set the ground rules and do that early, and that's in terms of when you expect them to be online and be working for you. Are you an exclusive arrangement? So are they going to work for other people as well? What's your thoughts on that? Can they have a part-time job after work? All that sorts of stuff. Holidays. Don't forget that they will have, they need to have holidays as well. Do they take those holidays when you take yours, or can they take holidays at other times? What's the process for applying for that and getting approval for that? Same with sick leave. What sort of sick leave entitlements do they have? All those sort of things with you. And then lastly, public holidays. Remembering that if they're in another country, they will have different public holidays to you. So we've just done that quite simply by, we've got a, Google have a calendar you can plug in that's got all the Filipino holidays in it, and that loads into my Google, so I know when they're going to be off, and then Ray just notifies me of days they're going to take off that are public holidays coming up in case I forget to look. So a couple of things there, but in general, if you're a bit flexible in how you work and how you need to work, I found them fantastic to work with and deal with. My two virtual assistants, extremely honest, extremely well-grounded people, diligent, hard workers. If I need them to do a bit extra here and there, they're really quite happy to help me out and for us to work together as a team. And I couldn't be happier with my relationship with them. All right, so the next question I get asked, if that's what a virtual assistant is, and I guess quickly, if you want to, probably a good time now, if you've got any questions, just type them in. So I've got some questions here. So do I dictate and send dictation digitally? Yeah, yeah, I do. I do use digital dictation, but I just use Audible or some other screen capture, some sort of audio capture software. So I use that, Mark, or I simply use Snagit, which can really help. Yeah. So how does that work for hours per week? Basically, I notionally say to my guys, it's 40 hours per week that they need to work for me. That's the notional thing, but I'm not too strict on that. Basically, we just need to do the work that I require, and there's some days when they work longer days than others, and other days when it's a bit quiet. So I think it all works out. Provided they're delivering what I need them to deliver, Carol, then I'm not too worried about how many hours they work, and whether I'm getting full 40 hours or whatever from them. In general, I'm really, really happy with how it all works. I treat them, Ryan, I treat them as a contractor. So the question is, are they legally an employee or are they a contractor in their country? I treat them as contractors. Yeah, so they're responsible for their own taxation and employment stuff. So they just send me an invoice every month, and then I pay that. Okay. And we'll talk a bit about invoicing and stuff later. Nabil, how are you? If I don't have 40 hours of work to give them, well, you either engage them on a part-time basis, but if they're 40 hours worth of work, if I don't have 40 hours worth of work to give them, then that's probably my problem, not theirs. If I've engaged them as a full-time employee, just like anybody else, if you engage a full-time employee in Australia and you don't have enough work for them, then you've got to come to some other arrangement with them. You may find somebody that that's happy to work for you on a do and charge basis, so they just charge you for the hours that they work for you. So there's different ways of employing people. All right, so let's talk about how we engage, recruit them, and I'll take you through my recruiting process. So there's 10 steps here, and it might seem a bit of overkill, but this is the process that I've used to recruit both my VAs, and it's worked out extremely well for me. So the first thing is, I think you've got to define the role really carefully, and we'll go through these each in detail. You need to evaluate it. Look at the talent pools. Where are you going to go and where do you want to recruit from? Research your position within that talent pool so you get a feeling for what the local market's like, just like you would if you're employing someone in Australia. You need to prepare for your recruiting campaign because it all happens a bit quickly. And then post a job, make the initial cut, evaluate responses from that, take them through the second gate, do your final interviews, and then appoint and induct. So a lot of it is really just a standard sort of recruiting process. Step one for me is define the role profile. So let's define the role clearly. I use a role profile template, which is from the guys at First Exec in Melbourne. Thanks, guys. I just find it's a really simple one-page summary of how you define the role, and this is how Ray's defined her role, and it's you just break it off into key areas. So be really clear, define the role really clearly on what you're looking for, just so then you know the sort of person that you need to go and find. Step two then is evaluate it. So review your role profile. Is this a role that can really be delivered effectively in a virtual environment? So I've spoken to people who start thinking of stuff that they wanted, things they want to do, and they've done a role profile, and a whole heap of the stuff they need delivered is going to be really hard to be delivered in a virtual environment. So just be really mindful of the fact that your role profile may not be something that can be effectively done in a virtual environment. Think about it, it's back down to Bill's question. How much time will you require? Full-time, part-time? Is it better off to start project-based? How do you want to do it? And, I'd encourage you to put your toe in the water. We'll talk about talent pools in a minute, but, go and engage somebody on a project basis to do something for you, just so you get the feel for how it can work and how you can interact with people and all that sort of stuff. The last question you've got to ask yourself is, do you want a VA who's locally based, or is an international VA okay? And I speak to a number of people who are really quite passionate about keeping people employed locally in Australia and providing jobs locally. That's great, and there are plenty of people in Australia who can do that virtual assistant role for you. But for others, you want to work in a global environment, then you might want to look at an international virtual assistant. The choice is yours, and I'm not going to talk about the ethics of it. That's something that you probably need to think through. So evaluate your role, be really clear on it. So once you're clear on your role, where you want to go, all that sort of stuff, then you can start to think about, okay, let's look at the different talent pools. Where can I find people to help me out here? Sorry, it's just a question. Yeah, that's right. So somebody got one based in Melbourne, and it just costs a little bit more. Yeah, I'd agree. I've employed a lady in New Zealand, and her rates are comparable with people in other parts of the world. So, sometimes it's not location dependent. It's about often where you want to go. So there's some websites there you can go for. If you want an Australian-based one, the Philippines is really good. I think that the time zone for the Filipinos is really useful for Australia. If you want international sort of project-based people, then I'd have a look at Freelancer. Fiverr is really good for short project-based stuff. I warn you about Fiverr. It's what people will do for $5, and it's really addictive. If you go under Fiverr, you'll find it's a real challenge. Not to stay there for hours looking at, wow, $5, I'll get one of those. I need my name written on a grain of rice, all that sort of stuff. And then Upwork is another one that does that. Then there's a whole heap of what I call virtual assistant firms. Sorry, I'll come back to it. So there's a whole heap of virtual assistant firms. Yep. And these are firms where you're not employing an individual. You're actually that firm will often employ a virtual assistant for you, and you'll get access to a virtual assistant. You may have one that's dedicated to you, or you may have access to a virtual assistant through I guess a team-based environment. What it means is you don't have to go through the whole recruiting process to find somebody, but it also means that you may change some things may be changed around. They may change around the virtual assistants that work with you. So you get no continuity, whereas I prefer to actually engage somebody who works for me and is part of me. And I guess a way of thinking about that is there's this specialist outsourcing firms, particularly for the accounting industry is currently one. So back office basically provides an outsourced accounting service through India. And you can speak to Namit about that. I'll put you in touch with them. Or Odyssey is a similar organisation who work out of Vietnam, and I can put you in touch with David if you're interested in looking up those sort of options. But finding your talent pool is really important. So my advice is go and hop on a whole heap of these things and have a look around at them, and just do a little bit of experimentation. All right, so I used Online Jobs, Pete. So I used onlinejobs.ph in the Philippines, and it was really good. I've also used 99 Designs quite a lot. So they're great if you've got any graphic design work on a contract basis. Just exceptional. It's a really good experience to do it. And then I've also used Freelancer and Fiverr.com to do different tasks at different times for me. All right. What else have I got here? Sorry, there's a couple of questions, so just bear with me. Come on. Right. Yeah. So yeah, 99.9 is really good. Fiverr's addictive. Justin says he's used Upwork quite a lot, and I think I did that. The role profile, Kate, was from the guys at First Executive in Melbourne. I can send you a copy if you'd like of my template, and it's a great template to use. All right, so let's just jump in here. Sorry, said I'm using different technology here today. So, all right. Oh, come on now. All right. So the next step is, prepare for your recruiting campaign. So once you've actually mapped your role profile, you're clear it's something you can use a virtual assistant for, and then you've identified where you're going to go for that virtual assistant. Then you can. My advice is prepare for the recruiting campaign, just like you should for any good recruiting campaign. My experience is it happens all really quickly. You get fast responses and people come back to you. So you actually need to have your stuff prepared in advance. So, so write your job post, and I think there's some really important things to think about here with your job post. Make sure you talk about the person you want, not your company. Yeah. So, too often when I see people, writing jobs for recruiting stuff, all they talk about is their company, and it's, 2/3 of the ad is talking about them and what a great business they've got, blah blah blah, and then the last bit's talking about it. So, talk about the person you want. Talk in the first person. You will do this. You will have these great experiences. This is what we're looking for. You'll have these qualifications. So use lots of you words in it because you're talking to them. Think about your avatar. Think about the perfect person you want for that role profile, and write to them as if you're talking to them. All right. So talk about a job that's right. I find that's better because you want to attract people. When you go onto these sites, you'll realize the number of jobs out there that people are applying for. All right. Plan your process. Write your email templates, and I'll take you through these in a second for Gate 1, Gate 2, and Gate 3. Prepare your exercises for Gate 2. So for me, it's a gated process. So people are, the first gate is they need to respond to my ad. The second gate is I need to do some exercises. The third gate is an interview. We'll go with that. And prepare your interview questions, and obviously you need to have a decision making. I shouldn't say obviously, but my advice is you have a decision matrix to weigh up the characteristics of the people that you're looking for. All right, so then you can sort between them when you get a number, and you will get a number of people applying for your positions. All right, so preparation, really important. Step 6, post your job. All right, so the process is going to vary from site to site depending on what talent pool you go to, but usually you register and you create a profile, and sometimes there are fees involved to that. So for onlinejobs.ph, I think it's about $50 Australian, and you register, and that it's $50 a month, or you can pay longer fees if you like, but you just cancel it. As soon as you've got somebody, you just cancel that, and that goes. So you can post your job using their templates. So they'll have a template system, so you need to understand what that is. But normally you define the salary range, payment terms, milestones, all those sorts of things. If it's a project, or just the salary range if it's a normal job. You then post your job, wait for applications, and answer any genuine questions. We'll talk about Gate 1 in a minute, but you will get a whole heap of people come back and go, yeah, let's go, or I'm ready, all that sort of stuff. I don't respond to any of that stuff, so I just respond to any genuine questions about the job. For projects, you will then evaluate the preferred applicant. You look up their references, all sorts of other things, and then what you would normally do is select your preferred applicant, and then with the project payments, say on freelancer.com, you actually upload your milestone 1 payment into like a holding bay, and the site Freelancer holds that for you. And when your virtual assistant has finished that first step of the project and you're happy with the work they've done, then you release the funds to them. You're normally going to have the next ones in place. All right. Now, full-time applicants will go to the next thing. So, posting a job for a project is really quite quick and quite easy. All right, this is just an idea of the cost of onlinejobs.ph. There it is. It's $49 a month, and you get different features for it. And then if you're going to use it a lot, there's a quarterly installment and or a yearly installment. So you're going to use that a lot. So there's also a free one there, but it also allows you to use things. So they've got a thing called Timeproof. So Timeproof is a thing that actually logs logs the time. Your virtual assistant logs on, they log into Timeproof, and it logs the amount of time they're working on your project. Also takes screenshots of what they're actually working on, so you can see whether they're on Facebook all day and charging you for it. It actually shows you what they're working on. So if you need that level of control, those sort of systems are there. All right, just mindful of the time. So we're going fairly well. So step 7 then is make the initial cut. So you'll get lots of responses. I found I got lots of responses to my applications. So you need to prepare them be prepared to cull them fairly hard to reduce them to a manageable number. So what I found was I was really looking for somebody to write blog articles for me and to I guess do some communication with clients and other things. Therefore, a couple of things. They needed to have answered the initial brief. Okay, so they needed to come back to me and say, yeah, I have this experience and I've done these things, blah, blah, blah. Attach my CV, and their covering letter needed to have at least a response to my thing. If they couldn't be bothered responding, they just said, yeah, I'm ready, or here's my CV or something, then I didn't actually respond to them. And they need to have good written English skills. So if they had poor grammar and spelling, I just culled them straight away. Okay, and then I've actually had a series of emails. So to the ones that I was saying goodbye to, I sent them a sorry, but you've been unsuccessful. Thanks very much for your application. Email 2 was congratulations, you've gone to the next stage, and that next stage was I gave them, I guess, a series of exercises, to work on. All right. So, and for me, those exercises in stage 2 were I gave them. So this is what I asked the interview for my virtual assistant to do. I asked them to type up. I gave them a sample of some handwritten notes of mine. I got them to type those for me. I got them to write I gave them an article out of the Melbourne Age, and I said, I want you to write me a 100-word blog article summarising that article in any way you like, and then I need you to send me some examples of previous work that you have done. And the purpose of that is to get people to jump through a few hoops for you, but it's also to cull out the ones that really don't have any experience or have just applied, because a lot of these online sites, people can just apply almost automatically to your job, and they'll apply for everything. So I found, I had 100 applicants initially. The first cut, I dropped it back to sort of 50 pretty quickly, 40 or 50. I then sent them the Gate 2 stuff, and that dropped them back. I only got about 10 responses to my Gate 2 exercise. All right, and those responses, 3 or 4 of them were superb. Yep. So Depending on your criteria, evaluate response from your applicants, depending on the tasks that you've set them. With my web designer, I got them to send me some examples of previous web design stuff they'd done that was tagged as theirs. I also asked them to build a simple website for me, so I gave them a simple task and said, here's some graphic design, here's some text, here's something else. I want you to jump online. I found a free website development place. I want you to develop a quick website for me. So I did a couple of things and got them to jump through a few things and just prove to me that they were capable of doing the job, as well as some referees. After the gate 2 thing, I evaluated the responses, I looked at them, and then it was quite easy out of the 10 people that responded to shortlist those who went through the interview phase. And so I sent those a thing saying, congratulations, can we book a time for an interview? And then an email 4, I said, thanks, but no thanks, you've been unsuccessful. All right. So that was that. Step 9 was interviews. So arranged interviews via Skype with my shortlisted people. I checked my interview questions, reviewed the decision matrix, and then I conducted the interviews and evaluated each candidate using that decision matrix. Okay, and that worked fairly well. And then I checked references for my top candidates via email and phone. And and they all came. Sorry, I did get good responses from different people on that. And from that, using my decision matrix, I made Ray an offer. She was my top candidate. I made her an offer, and she was raring to go. So it was all good. Got a question here. No, Peter, I didn't pay them for the initial time they spent on it. The tasks weren't onerous, so when I said develop a website, it was just a simple web page I wanted them to develop. So all I wanted to do was design a simple web page. So, I'm thinking it was, it wouldn't have taken them more than 30 minutes to do it, what I was expecting from them. The same with the transcription and the writing the blog article. If they had to spend 30 minutes to an hour in it, that's okay. And I wanted people who could demonstrate to me that they were capable. So it's no different to actually interviewing a whole heap of people and getting them to spend 2 or 3 hours with you and your business. And I was looking for a full-time employee, and I was going to reward them and pay them well. So that's part of the interview process. Make sense? All right. So selected my top candidate, and then the final step then is negotiate your final terms and conditions and create a letter of offer. So I just sent a simple letter of saying, you've got the job. Here's those things I talked about earlier, rate of pay, hours worked, all that sort of stuff, and then appoint them and have them accept that and sign that. And then you need to think about what's your induction process to bring them on board, just like you would with a face-to-face person here in Australia. You need to think carefully about how you induct them and bring them on board. So what sort of IT access and systems access are you going to provide for them? How do you get that to them, all that sort of stuff, with the full range of online and cloud-based solutions. I'm actually using cloud-based PowerPoint for this presentation tonight. So I'm completely cloud-based here with you this evening. Makes it a lot easier. You might need to think about confidentiality. So if they're dealing with client information or your own personal information, for my own point of view and from my client's point of view, I've got my VAs to all sign confidentiality agreements for what it's worth. So you need to find work hours, communication protocols, that sort of stuff. Any skills training you might need to do with them. So you may have put somebody on, but you need to train them up in specific programs or systems and things that you use in your business. And then the last one is, how are you going to pay them? And we can talk a little bit about that in a second, but how are you going to pay them and make sure that they get paid regularly and all that sort of stuff. So let's talk briefly then around what I call the small stuff. So in terms of paying wages, I started out paying my guys weekly in advance. I actually paid them. And then after a while, I suggested we move to monthly in advance. So I actually pay my guys in advance. I pay them monthly in advance, um, and that's just my decision to do that. So you can use PayPal, direct deposit into their bank accounts, or Western Union. A couple of those, so PayPal and particularly Western Union have higher fee levels. But the convenience of Western Union in third world countries is they can trot down the street, it's instant money, and they can have their money almost as soon as you've sent it, whereas PayPal and bank deposits can take 2 or 3 days to clear and get ready. So we're thinking about that. What currency do you pay them in? I actually have agreed with my guys, I actually pay them in local currency, so I pay them in Filipino pesos, because I wear the currency risk. So I'm quite happy to wear the currency risk for them. It might move, 30, 40% in my favour or their favour. I believe that that's not a risk I'm willing for them to take, and I'm quite happy to wear that currency risk for them, because I don't think it's fair. And that I pay them in US dollars and they swing on the exchange rate and how much they get paid. One thing to think about, the Philippines has a policy called the 13-month payment. So basically at Christmas time, you pay them an extra month, and that's a standard practice. I thought it might have been a bit of a scam, but there's a number of websites that said, no, that's the 13-month payment. I didn't think Ray and Chris were scamming me, but yeah, so that's a standard thing, and you need to build that into your costing and other things. And there may be some other oddities in particular countries that you might need to think about. In terms of evaluation, I said to my guys, the standard sort of 3 months thing, but we would evaluate it weekly. So we just had weekly discussions and on how it was going, and after a month I just said, look, I'm fine with it, are you fine with it, is it working for you? And we've been working together for, quite a long time now. Public holidays I mentioned before, get access to a local calendar. Google has those, and you can pull those in and import those into your calendars. So because the public holidays are different and there's different religious celebrations and all those sorts of things, and they also need to know when the public holidays are in Australia and that sort of stuff. So my policy on public holidays is they can take the public holidays that are applicable in their country, remembering sometimes that there are lots of different religious holidays in some countries, and not everybody celebrates all those public holidays. So just need to be clear on what that is. Annual holidays, what's the process for approval? Basically I work on sort of the 4 weeks sort of standard, but generally if I go on holidays, my guys can take that time as well, unless there's things that they need done. Sick leave policy, I actually haven't got a sick leave policy. I find that it hasn't been an issue. Occasionally they're sick and they've got something on, or something's happened, had a motorbike crash or something, then I'm quite happy to spot some of that without having a thing. The question is, do I pay them for holidays? Yes, I do. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just like an employee in Australia. I get paid on holidays here. Obviously, if they're casual, you wouldn't do that, but my permanent employees definitely get paid their holiday pay. Access issues, just mentioned that again. Brownouts and cyclones and all those things can have a big impact on the local infrastructure, as could local issues like, I don't know, military coups and all sorts of other things could cause problems with access. But remember that internet access is absolutely critical, and anything that knocks around that internet access can cause you problems. I find when my guys, the power goes out, they often know when the brownouts, don't know when they're coming, but they know they're in the area when it's happening, and they'll actually alert me and say, we're offline or about to go offline, or there's brownouts scheduled, we don't know when they're coming, and you've just got to plan around that. So just like you would if you got employees stuck in traffic or flooding or whatever in Australia, but just plan around it. And I'm not a brain surgeon, so nobody dies if I don't get back to them really quickly with stuff. So obviously it can be an inconvenience at times, particularly if there's deadlines to be met, but generally it hasn't been a problem for us. The issue of exclusivity, if you're only working with somebody on a part-time basis or a casual basis, they're obviously going to work with other people, but full-time work, can they do a bit of other work around the side if it doesn't impact on your work? I'm quite comfortable for my people to do a bit of that. The other thing is then proof of work. So some people, if you're employing people on an hourly basis or a casual basis, you may want to have understand are they actually working the hours that they said they've worked for you, and what are they doing, and all those sort of things. And you can use time proof or similar systems. I think Upwork have a similar model where they take screenshots and that sort of stuff for people. I certainly haven't worried with any of that. And basically Ray and Chris sort of manage their time and work on my projects as required. And that's part of the communication thing of letting people know when you need things back and how urgently they are required. So just like you do with any employee in Australia. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I was correct. So Justin says that Upwork does have that that sort of time system for project-based work. All right. And I think it's quite good for some of that. All right. So any other questions around I guess employing a virtual assistant? How do you hire them? How do you find them? All those sorts of things. Do I get them to manage email for me? No, I don't get them so much to manage. Well, it depends what you mean by manage email. Not my personal email and business email, but they do manage all our mail outs and all those sorts of things through MailChimp. So this whole webinar has been organised brilliantly by Ray and Chris. So we've got processes set up where we do the initial planning and then they prepare everything else and run the cycles of sending out emails and reviewing them, and they work really closely together to do that. But they don't actually manage my personal emails for me. Yeah. How long does the process take? The recruiting process, Nabil? I found it was really quite quick. So, literally minutes after I'd posted the ad, I started getting responses to it. I culled them pretty quickly. I gave them a couple of days for most people to be interested, and then I suppose the whole process took about a week for me to engage both Ray and Chris. Yep. And just in that, I mean, I had a full start with my web developer, so I employed a lady who was very, very capable, but she didn't. She actually said she could do some of the stuff I needed to do, but she wasn't capable of doing it in the end. It really became obvious that she was a very talented designer in some areas, but she couldn't do some of the basic programming stuff that I really needed done. And so we parted ways, and then I've engaged Chris, and Chris was really quite experienced in that space, and didn't have as much experience as this other lady, but he had the experience in the areas that I really needed. He's worked out brilliantly for me. All right, any other questions? Process can be really quite quick, and it's a really, I guess, powerful way of engaging somebody. All right. So let's just pull it all together. Engaging a virtual assistant, lots of benefits. Really has a lot of benefits. But there are some disadvantages. They're not local. So everything's a communication via the internet, all that sort of stuff. Now that can work really, really well. And it's really quite handy when you travel a lot and all that sort of stuff, because you haven't got a locally based person. But for some people it won't be right. It's a very flexible way to employ and engage with your team, so it's really quite useful. I find it's not for everyone, and I've certainly had people who've engaged virtual assistants and really haven't enjoyed the process at all, because the virtual environment does, I guess, cause some communication issues and challenges for people. So just be mindful of the fact that it's not for everybody, and you need to provide some leverage. They can provide great leverage for you and your team in terms of cost, timing, and access. And I've actually been talking to one of my clients about getting a virtual assistant for their personal assistant, just to give some more leverage to that person to take on some more roles and do greater things within the firm. I think it's really important that you treat them like a local employee, and that's probably one of the most important things that we need to do. So then, not necessarily any different to a problem. All right, Andy, enjoy your pork and beer. I've got no idea what that is, but anyway, that's fantastic. 10-step process, define the role. I just encourage you to think really carefully about the role. The biggest mistake I see people making is writing a role profile for Superman or Superwoman. They want a virtual assistant who can type all their stuff, make travel arrangements for them, do outbound social media, do outbound phone calls, edit video, develop websites, do everything else. Those people don't exist here in Australia, let alone overseas. If you find one, you're very, very lucky. So, just make sure that your role profile is really quite achievable, because it can be a real challenge, I guess. And that's the biggest thing. Make sure the role is actually doable. And you're not expecting somebody to be just superhuman. Simply because they're virtual doesn't mean they can be superhuman. It might mean that you need to split your role up into a couple of part-time roles and have different people who do different things. All right. So remember, work through this 10-step process. Evaluate your role. Look at where the talent can come from and where you might be able to find it. Do some research into what's out there. Look at wage rates and the sort of wording that other people are using when they're putting their jobs together and all that sort of stuff. So research that really carefully. Prepare well, because it's going to happen pretty quickly. Nabil's question was, how quickly will it happen? Well, it can happen much faster than you think. Asked about my clients, how much client interaction they have. They have some, but they don't necessarily have a lot of client interaction, direct client interaction. There's emails fly backwards and forwards and things, but no voice interaction with them, so a little bit of email contact. All right, make sure you post your job. The important thing is set up a process so that people can demonstrate to you that they're capable of doing the job. So that's what my gated process is. Particularly Gate 2 is just a simple process. You don't need them to write War and Peace and do a whole heap of things. You need to do some simple things that will help you evaluate where they can really do the job for you. And then finally, make sure you appoint them and you induct them and bring them on well. Okay, so I got a little question for you. So what's stopping you from engaging a virtual assistant in the next month? Write it into the question area. What's the biggest barrier to you for saying, okay, I need a virtual assistant, whether here in Australia or not? What's stopping you now? Yep, time. Yeah, need to find the role. Yeah, internet access is spasmodic. Yeah, it can be a real challenge. Yeah, so you need reasonable internet access, but no more than you need to send emails and things to anybody else. So, you're not spending all your life on the internet with them. It's a lot. It can be email and other stuff. So understand the role. Yeah, so defining the role is really important. I think that's a particularly important thing to do. So somebody's actually thinking about other ways they might be able to engage them. Okay. So yeah, so everybody's clear on defining that role. Yeah, finding somebody with a passion. For me, that's the interview process. So you can ask those sorts of questions. Yeah. All right. Yep. So so most people are saying, if I define the role, that's going to get in the way. So if you define the role, then there's nothing really to stop you from jumping out and finding a virtual assistant using that sort of process. Now, I guess this is one of the questions I get asked all the time is, how do I find a virtual assistant? How do I do all this sort of stuff? And I can flick you onto webinars and do all those sorts of things. But a couple of people have said to me, do you have a process? Do you have a process that we could do? Now, I don't, but I'm happy to actually develop an online program for this that's got all the templates and, you know, all the emails and all the stuff that I would use and ways of planning this out, decision matrices and all that sort of stuff. I guess my question is, I'd like you to just answer this quick poll for me, is would you be prepared to invest in it? If I put the time and energy into investing that, would you be interested in using that? I think it'll cost about a couple $100 per person, maybe less, but I'm sure someone will be able to manage and do it yourself. That's fine, but I'm just interested in finding out if there's a need there for it. I'm really happy to develop something, and we can go from there. I'm not interested in wasting my time developing stuff that people are not really interested in. Well, that's good feedback so far. Still interested in your response. All you do is just click on the question area there. Click on the response area. Sorry, don't know what I'm talking about. Yep. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Kate. That's great, Carol. Thank you for the feedback. That's great. All right, so that's good. So just on the people who've plugged it in there so far, I'm looking at about 20% of you said that you'd be interested. So that's probably something we can work on. 70% of you said you'd be able to manage and move it on yourself, and then 13% of you said, no, I don't think I really need a VA. I think that's just as important question to understand as anything else. So that's good. I'll leave that poll open for a little while, but it's given me a really good idea. All right, so thanks very much for that, for being here and joining me this evening. It's been good to catch up with you. If you've got any more questions, please just plug them into the question area. Thanks, Duff. Really appreciate it. If you're interested, we work closely with businesses, and really happy to spend some time with you. The best way to do that is to click on that "Do you want to grow your business" icon on our website and book a 10-minute call with me. I'm really happy to have a chat with you just to find out whether there's a good fit between us, and whether it's worthwhile moving on to the stage where we talk about how we might work together. So really happy to do that for you. Our next webinar is on 4th of August, same time, and it's going to cover what's your strategy and plan for 2016, 2017. So a whole heap of us have just rolled over, not a whole heap of us, everybody's just rolled over a new financial year. A number of you need to either update your plans that you set up at the start of the year, or start to build another plan for the next financial year. So just thought we might have a session there where we go through a simple strategy planning process that's going to really help you move forward and set a plan for 2016, 2017. So thanks very much for it. Really enjoyed having you here today. I hope you got some value out of it. If at any time I can be of any assistance to you around this, please just flick me an email. I'm really happy to have a chat with you and give you some of my information and some of my guidance. And so just let me know what I can do to help you. All right, so thanks very much. If there's no further questions, then I'll do that. I'm sorry, that's my fault. The screen is stuck at poll, and I've closed it. All right. All right. So we'll just go there. Sorry about that. So I'll just take you back up so that I think I'd learn the technology by now, wouldn't you? All right. Let's go the other way. All right. So thanks very much. Have a good night. Thanks, Les. Talk to you soon. Yeah. Thanks, Blair. Good to talk to you, mate. Thanks, Mark. All right. Very good. All right. I'll leave it there. Thanks very much, everybody. Hope you have a great evening, If you're traveling, please travel safe. Of course you're not traveling. I'm the one traveling. All right then. All the best. Thanks. Bye.